Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley Podcast. This is the pre-Portsmouth preview episode. Myself, Andrew Greaves, joined by Paul Woodhouse, Chris Borden and Simon Evans. Before we get into the debate, thanks to everyone who's signed up to our new Substack newsletter. If you do want to get a piece of that action, just go to fromthebeallend.substack.com or check out links on our socials at Be Whole Podcast. It's fair to say we've been quite blown away by the amount of people wanting to sign up to that podcast, that newsletter even. And we've got another episode coming out this morning. So by the time you're listening to this, you should already have that episode and issue in your inbox. Do pass it on to your friends, do share the link, etc., etc. We've got some big stuff planned over the next couple of months as we see the conclusion of this season. Speaking of which, another long away trip for the Hardy Clarets who follow Scott Parker's team home and away. A trip to Portsmouth tomorrow, another trek down to the south coast. Lads, what do we think about this one? Let's start with you, Simon. Bit of a bore draw, which we won't labour on too much against Leeds United, and certainly Scott Parker in his press conference didn't really want to labour too much, described it as not really a classic. But again, a different opportunity, a different challenge almost. Portsmouth quite good at home, as Parker pointed out, aside from the defeat in their last game. I think he pointed out they were 7 unbeaten at home. What are we expecting? Are we expecting a Plymouth, or are we expecting one of those maybe Oxford United away type games where, you know, you really struggle to break down a side fighting for survival?
Well, if we look at this season's track record, what we should do is go and enjoy a convincing win at Portsmouth, looking very bright and positive and progressive in attack, and then draw 0-0 at home to Oxford in the next game. That's about Burnley this season, isn't it? So, you know, yeah, you've got to go down there looking to, you know, we dropped 2 points against Leeds. There's no, you know, we can talk about it being a good point and all that kind of stuff. If you're going for promotion in this league, you're looking to get 3 points out of every single game, and we've slipped back a little bit as a result of that. It's not a, you know, as we were saying on the pod, it's not the end of the world. It's not a disaster, but it becomes an issue if we don't follow it up with a convincing performance and win at Portsmouth. And I think our away form this season suggests that we you know, we've got every chance of doing that. But I think everyone would just like to see a little bit more, you know, of that Plymouth display, a little bit more of the players pushing, swarming in attack, being more positive, being on the front foot, and, you know, clear that memory of that pretty dour Monday night from us.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, Portsmouth doing what we don't really do at home, at scoring plenty of goals. Just looking since the start of December at Fratton Park, they beat Bristol City 3-0. They beat Coventry 4-1. They beat Swansea 4-0 on New Year's Day. Got beat by Rovers 3-0 away, but also beat Portsmouth. Portsmouth also beat Middlesbrough and Stoke City on that run last couple of weeks. 2-1 against Middlesbrough, 3-1 against Stoke City. So they do score goals at home. You know, I think Parker was keen to point out that despite them being in 21st in the Sky Bet Championship, they are a team which you know, do come out, and that sometimes suits us, doesn't it? And I think that's probably the difference between the home and away games is teams feel obliged to come out and try and play football.
They're saying in all that, I mean, they held Sheffield United to a goalless draw at Fratton Park as well. But yeah, I mean, we saw full well at Turf Moor. They didn't sit in. You know, they might have done once they took the lead, but they sort of, you know, they looked very well coached, very well organised at Turf Moor, and for all the world, it looked like they were going to, you know, hold on to that lead. And it was, yeah, very, very nervy in the end. Like once they got the equaliser with Sarmiento's bit of quality, you just wondered, you know, whether they'd kick on and get the points. And again, it didn't look like they were going to until Jeff Brownell popped up. But it's one of those places. Anyone who's, you know, there'll be many Burnley fans who've been to Fratton Park, even though we've not been for a good while. But it's the fervent home support, and they'll be, you know, they will drive them on. You know, it's they're not going to sit in and sort of bank in again at home. It can be quite not intimidating, because I don't know if there's that. You know, there's not many places you go nowadays that are intimidating. Millwall's not intimidating. You maybe Ellen Road when they're absolutely bang at it, but we've gone and won there this season. So yeah, it's I say hopefully they come out to play and like Simon was saying, if Burnley are aggressive and they sort of step on the throttle and they go for the throat, really trying to nick the ball high, nick it early, and go from there. You think like the opening goals come from forcing an error on the Portsmouth byline very early on, and you get a goal up, and all of a sudden you're in command and looking to score at every opportunity. You've got to carry on in that vein. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and Woody, Parker not keen to reflect on Monday night, but I know you're a big fan of rewatching games on a big TV and picking through the action. I mean, Chris is right. I mean, we do want to see Burnley on the front foot. Do you think against Leeds United we took the right tact in terms of, look, it wasn't like we were banked behind the ball. We had the odd kind of foray forward, but one shot on target from either side in 90 minutes. Neither side really wanted to gamble too much, did they? Do you think it's kind of, a game-by-game plan, and actually against Portsmouth we'll have a different setup, perhaps different mentality going forward?
I think he mentioned something in his post-match presser about the default position of Burnley when things might not be going to plan. He said obviously they weren't trying to produce that level of football. They were trying to be a little bit more free-flowing, etc. But the point is, when things aren't going for Burnley, the default is not to lose. And so I think there is that mentality of, that, they shall not pass, which we've seen quite a lot of. Sometimes do we default to that a little bit too soon? Maybe. And I think Leeds also defaulted to it after their initial bright start. It seemed like they also stood off and thought, well, we won't risk this either. And it turned into what it turned into, which has cured any thoughts of insomnia I've had this week, rewatching it anyway.
Yeah, and Simon, I mean, Woody mentioned there that default position, and did we slip into it too soon? I think we've touched on this before, but we do feel like there's a lot less pressure when we're away from home, doesn't it? I mean, you can see it, some of the better attacking performances have happened away from Turf Moor. Scott Parker keen to point out that he doesn't care very much for people who call his side boring, and that there's different ways of getting promoted, and actually getting promoted with dull football's not his intention. Do you think the fact that we are away gives us that? I don't know. That freedom. It just feels like there's more freedom when we're away from home.
I think it's the oppositions who give us that freedom, really, because they're still hoping to beat us. I mean, we've played against some low blocks away from home. You mentioned that Oxford United game. That would be one where we saw that kind of. And there's been a few, haven't there, where teams have looked like they're playing for a point at home against us. But generally, teams are a little bit more open. They're more willing in front of their own fans. They don't. It's humiliated, isn't it, to go out and play like that at home? As a team, fans don't like it. We didn't like it against Leeds. And I think we are getting teams being just a little bit more open and giving us a bit more room, especially in those wide areas. And I think, the more I think about Monday, and I haven't done a Woody, I don't have one of those big TV screens I can walk in front of with a stick and point out like the tactical formations and, on Sky Sports style.
Have you got the pundit trainers as well, Woody?
Obviously. Yeah.
I've got some Pep shoes. I've got some of them, them black shoes with the white sole at the bottom.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But, it's a lot of flailing of arms. Let's put it that way. There's more excitement from me than there is actually on the TV.
But, pondering it rather than really analysing, but pondering it. And I think one of our problems in terms of creating is we rely so much on the wide areas, don't we? We haven't really opened up teams with a ball through the middle, slipped into Fleming, just turning off the back of the last man and that kind of thing. We look to our wide players to do it. And when they play in these low blocks, or when they play with like their midfield, very deep in front of the back four, it effectively means they're having two men up against our wingers most of the time. They're doubling up on them. This is why I think I've been a bit muted in criticism of Koleosho, because he's up against something he'll never played against really in his career, which is teams doubling up against him because they know how fast he is. They're not daft. Everyone saw him in the Premier League last year, and the same for Anthony as well. They're up against two players, and I think away from home we don't get that as much because they're number 7 or number 11, if you like, are looking to get forward and do something and contribute. So it does mean our wingers, especially, I mean, Anthony's best performances in a Burnley shirt have nearly all come away from home, I think, so they're getting that bit more room, which works for us if we then deliver the quality, and we know that Anthony can deliver a quality cross. On the other side, we'll go back, I'm sure, to the debate about whether it's Foster or Hannibal or somebody else or Koleosho playing in that other flank. But, we have to make those crosses really count, and then Fleming's got to be a number 9.
Yeah, and Chris, I've done a predicted lineup for this morning's newsletter, which suggests that Pires will perhaps come back in for Humphreys. I think, that tends to be the pattern against teams, below the halfway point of the table. We tend to go with Pires because he's perhaps got a bit more attacking emphasis. And I also wondered in that kind of predicted lineup whether Foster might drop out for Hannibal, given the fact that Foster was quite, rather ineffective on Monday night in both going forwards and backwards. So I predicted 2 changes. What do you think Parker's going to do with his lineup?
It's interesting because I say I was critical of Foster first half in particular. Bogle had a free run down their right hand side, and he offered nothing with the ball. It was bouncing off him at every opportunity, but he stuck at it. And there's one instance where he tracked Bogle all the way back to the Burnley goal line, and forced a goal kick in the end, and Bogle screaming for a free kick, which it probably was, but he just showed that diligence, and I've got to be honest, I'd stick with him. Just, I'd say, his stats this season don't suggest he's a great goal threat, but he can, he's shown he can deliver that, and it might just be, a goal in the Championship that just gets him ticking over again. So I'd persevere with him, just to have that option of having, essentially 2 wide men when he comes off the line and to support Fleming. Same with Humphrey. I think I've said before. I think he put a wicked ball over on Monday night. He's as good as anything delivering a cross from the flanks that we've got. So adding he's defensively better than Pires. I won't be surprised if he sticks with him. Hannibal will probably have to wait because he's probably going to have to show us in a cameo what he can do again before he gets a start, maybe. But, I think that's it. They're good enough, easily good enough to go there and get all 3 points and keep the pressure on before. But this run of 6 games. It could be pivotal. It's on paper it's easier than Leeds' run, and it might be where if you pick up a couple of points here and there where Leeds maybe drop them, then it might make all the difference.
Yeah, and Woody, Chris mentions that run of games. We saw obviously Hull City getting a shock result at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United on the Friday as we were playing on the Monday. I guess at this stage of the season, Plymouth scoring a last-minute equaliser against Sunderland. I guess at this stage of the season, it's about consistency, isn't it? And about staying, within touching distance, if not, using any opportunity to overtake your rivals, knowing that at some point there is going to be sticky patches for all of that top 4, which, to all intents and purposes, looks like it's probably going to be the final top 4 in some organisation or other.
Well, yeah, you can definitely see there's been a little bit of a breakaway, hasn't there, with the top 4. But out of those, everybody seems a little bit nervous to stick their head out of the parapet, don't they? And like we've known with the Championship for quite a while, anybody who goes on a run of good results or bad results, you suddenly either up there or down there, as we see with Luton, 23rd, and just a handful of wins, and you're seeing a little bit of daylight. But everybody seems to be screwing it up a little bit. they get a chance to see something, and everybody's dropping points for having little weird results. Leeds had that aberration against Hull themselves, didn't they? Where they, drew 3 apiece. And so I don't know whether whoever's willing to take it by the scruff of the neck and put some results together might see some daylight.
Yeah, and
it's up to
Simon,
whoever.
the run of fixtures, we are kind of playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, if you will. Next 5 games, Portsmouth obviously on Saturday, Oxford United at home the following Tuesday, then a break for the FA Cup away at Southampton on the Saturday, Hull at home on the Wednesday, Preston North End then away on the Saturday. 15 days of February, we've got 5 games of football. From a league point of view, you want that momentum, don't you? Because they all look winnable to a certain extent. They all look like teams that we shouldn't be fearing much of. Hull at home, Oxford at home, Portsmouth away, North End away. Is the kind of the workload that comes at this time of the season a worry for you, or have you seen enough in terms of the way the players have performed from a fitness point of view to suggest that, we can weather this storm because of the work they've put in kind of before we've got to this point?
Well, there'll have to be a bit of rotation, won't there? I mean, I think an obvious one for me looking at Monday's game would be to look at that midfield and say, is Josh Laurent going to play every game in February? No, he's probably not, is he? But there's Hannibal to come in there. Maybe, we don't know how far John Joe Salvi is away from making his Clarets debut. You would hope, you hear all this about how he was training and keep himself fit and all that. You'd hope he's not too far away. But that's an area you want to keep people fresh in. I mean, Brownhill seems to just run, and I don't imagine a problem with him. But
Duracell into
but maybe Cullen and Laurent are players you want to look at. We can rotate our fullbacks pretty easily. I mean, going back to what Chris was saying there, I'm not even sure anymore that Lucas Perez is a better attacking option than Bashir Humphries, to be honest, because I think he's really improved this year. Quietly away under the radar. I think, if you went back through all the films and looked at the quality of crosses delivered by Perez and Bashir Humphries, I don't think there's a great deal of difference. In fact, if anything, perhaps Humphries is delivering the more killer ball in there. On the right-hand side, I don't know what's happened with Sonny, presume he was injured after his first appearance and giving away that penalty in that game rather unfairly. But he could come in for Connor Roberts to keep that fresh. So we do have some options, and I think we will probably look to use some of those, because it does take its toll as those Saturday, Tuesday rhythm, and you start messing it about by throwing in Fridays and Mondays and all the rest of it we get. It just feels like you're on the a rabbit wheel, going round and hamster wheel, going round and round all the time. So I would expect to see a rotation. Is our squad deep enough to deal with that? It should be, yeah, it should be. Certainly help if we got a few players moving from being on the grass to on the football field.
Yeah, and Chris, I know we've said this several times, but we don't get any real detail. I mean, again, today Parker was talking about Benny and Ramsey and Redmond and I can't remember who else he was talking about. Oh, Enoch Adjer. He did kind of make a comment about Ramsey being a bit closer, a bit more of a certainty than some of the others. I mean, we've been kind of, looking forward to the return of Ramsey, but there's that fear that he becomes one of those players that he gets better and better the longer he doesn't play, isn't there?
But he's the new Jeff Hendrick, you mean?
That's all.
Well, listen,
we are in trouble.
There's 17 league games left. It's time. I mean, the Southampton game, as it happens, might come at a great time to maybe, you get Shelby in there, getting some significant minutes under his belt, and maybe some of this, this elusive group, the Ramseys, Redmonds, Bensons, that fella, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't believe he exists. Whether he's still here after Monday night, who knows? But one thing for sure,
he'll be here.
He's wasting a bloody wage at the moment, isn't he? It's
who's signing him, Chris? Who's going to sign him?
Well, someone will. You know what agents are like. And some desperate clubs up and down that'll take him, won't they, you'd imagine? But no, it's that game. You know, so you can change the centre halves around. It adds that rotation. You'll give a few days off to the main core, and yeah, it'd be nice to win. Nice to win and progress to the last 16 or so. And but you know, are you going to win it? Are you going to get to a semi-final at Wembley? Probably not. It's just one of those. You've got to use the group and trust them.
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, it is Premiership opposition, Premier League opposition. Probably if we did go up, we won't be playing Southampton next season there, but it is a good, it's a good test, isn't it? It's not like, no disrespect to Reading, we felt comfortable enough putting two young lads who performed really well in there, but you could almost use a Southampton game as a chance to get some of the more experienced, fringier players some minutes, because we probably are at some point going to be calling upon them in this last 17 league games, as Chris said.
That's exactly right. It's a good test. It's always nice playing those languishing at the bottom of the Premier League when you're somewhere near the top of the Championship, isn't it? Just to see how you can do. Remember Bournemouth, obviously not too long ago, and gave them a little bit of a thumping. But yeah, it's that great unknown, isn't it? Who's on the grass, how much of the grass, how much of the boot have they put on the grass? Have they felt a tweaking arm? What the devil's going on? And it's all that unknown stuff. But it will be nice to see some of the, like you say, more experienced of the fringe players start coming back and see if they've got something to offer.
Yeah. Let's move on to the transfer window, because it's been quite a quiet transfer window for the Clarets. I mean, we have added a couple of new faces in Ashley Barnes and John Joe Shelby, the aforementioned John Joe Shelby. Let's kind of unpick where we think we are. Let's unpick whether, if we end the transfer window in the same state as we are at this point, whether it will be the end of the world or not. I mean, Simon, my opinion seems to be, or my kind of thought is that, do we need any more players coming in? I mean, there's not a lot out there in January. I mean, I get lots of Burnley fans sending me, various kind of pictures of in-the-know accounts on Twitter suggesting we're signing this player and that player. And, of course, Nathan Teller was definitely going to be an unused substitute midweek. I'm not quite sure where the starting 11 and scoring a goal came into that plan. I presume the free Teller campaign on Twitter's been put back in its box. But there's been no concrete links, has there? And Scott Parker seems quite relaxed. Are you as relaxed as Scott Parker and I am in terms of, we don't need to add to what is already still quite a bloated squad?
Well, he may be relaxed, or he may be resigned to the fact that he's not getting anyone. Maybe Pace and the board have said, look, you've got a massive squad. We've got a big wage bill. All those players, that when the camera pans to the stands during the Leeds game and you see Shelby and Redmond sat there, there's two good wages that they're going to be on.
Yeah.
And then all the injured players who we list out, so I'm not going to do it again, but we know who they are, and they're all earning good money as well. So, there's a big wage bill for the Championship. There's a big size squad. There's young players who came in against Reading who, frankly, I would be perfectly happy seeing McDermott playing against Portsmouth in midfield. After that performance against Reading, I wouldn't be worried about him, being incapable of coping with it. I think he could. So, yeah, we have a squad. We've talked about the position that we feel we need to fill and the fact that we're not scoring enough goals, and whether or not that's a winger or a centre-forward. We've focused a lot on the centre-forward aspect of it. Maybe he's looking at that left side and thinking there's a different kind of player I can bring in there. But maybe he's been told by Alan Pace, look, unless we get some offer for some of our starters from Premier League coming in with silly money and we get rid of people, we're not really going to do anything. And, in terms of targets, really, if you think about it, we've got a recruitment team whose job is, and they explained this in Mission to Burnley very clearly, to draw up like top 10 lists for every position and have their targets. Now, they either have those or they don't. And presumably they have them. And so it's a question of when is the right time to go and make bids for those players. Well, it is harder to get deals done in January. It's a big cliche that everyone trots out at this time of year, but it is, because clubs don't want to disrupt their squads in the middle of the season. So unless it's somebody who's not featuring for a club, who we could easily pick up, or a club that really needs the money in Europe who don't have a big budget where we can go in and our 5 million really is an offer they can't refuse, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we don't sign anybody. And I wouldn't be freaked out about it either. I do wonder if the Ashley Barnes thing, and we all got caught up in the euphoria of it before the Rovers game, and it was a brilliant piece of PR and it was a feel-good bit of documentary footage and all the rest of it. I do wonder if that wasn't a bit of a wasted signing, with all due respect to a player we love and admire, because I'm not sure he's actually going to be giving us much more this season. You know, and there's no indication that Parker's chucking him on with 20 minutes to go in a 0-0 draw at home against top of the league, is there? So I think it might be, a quite expensive mascot for the dressing room, that one.
Do you know, in Happy Mondays albums, he used to put vocals, Sean Ryder, drums, Gaz Whelan, bass, Paul Ryder, guitar, Mark Day, vibes, Bez. And I think Ashley Barnes is playing that role, isn't it? You know, vibes. I think
give me some maracas.
Do not mention maracas. Bobby Ball listens to this podcast. We're sure he does, and I'm sure the first 10 people inside Turf Moor will get some Ashley Barnes maracas to try and drum up some atmosphere. Seeing as the halftime activation has gone by the wayside. But Chris, I mean, we've talked about strikers, and we know there's not much out there. But I mean, the player I hoped was coming due to the fact that Bobby Ball is here. Cannon has joined Sheffield United. Diaz has joined Sheffield United. I think Leeds are after Cameron Archer. I think Sunderland were linked with Akpong. Everybody else appears to be kind of picking up these kind of striker reinforcements. Now, of course, you've got to get them fitting into your system. And to be fair, to Chris Wilder, he looked like he put out a side that had never met each other on Friday night against Hull. So there is that challenge, and it is about, do you bring somebody in, does it disrupt the squad? But are you worried at all in terms of everybody else seemingly picking up strikers when we're crying out, it's perceived that we're crying out for a number 9, and number 9s appear to be coming north, but not necessarily stopping off on this side of the Pennines?
I mean, it'd be fabulous if you could. You could just go out and land, a sort of a marquee centre forward. It gives everyone a lift, but it can go either way. There wasn't such a thing as a transfer window then, but to have Ian Wright through the door, we all know what happened. But 2 years later, you bring Robbie Blake through the door, and Robbie Blake took 6 months to come to terms with. He obviously was carrying a bit of a niggle, and he was wearing his diving boots, as Stan said, and we didn't see Robbie Blake to his full potential for another 6 months or so. Again, like you look at the window we had 2 years ago, knowing we were promoted, so you're hoping Ekdal and Alderkiel contributed to the promotion, but we're cast aside, and one's out on loan, one's been sold. Obafemi came in, he's out on loan, we'll never see him again. And the other one was Lyle Foster, who, the verdict's still out on 2 years on. So, are you going to bring a Brownie in, or are you going to bring a Peter Crouch in? Or it's one of those, isn't it? It is. When you see Sheffield bringing Cannon in and Diaz, you imagine they're going to be, bolstered. They're going to be improved. Leeds are in desperate need of a centre forward, I think. Sunderland, I think, you've all heard my thoughts on Isidore and his cultured finishing. I mean, is Akpong going to leave Ajax to go to the Championship? You'd be surprised. Is Teller going to leave the Champions League and the Bundesliga, top end of the Bundesliga to come to the Championship, you've got a chance of fruit seller signing, haven't you? The Nathan seller.
Let's keep that one. Let's keep that one till Monday night.
Nutella.
That one's getting clipped up on YouTube on Monday night when Nathan's smiling face is on Ashley's social media profiles.
I would be astonished. They said it's 10 years ago, I'll say just as a bit of an aside. When Danny Ings was being linked with Liverpool and David Moyes at Real Sociedad, etc., and the window fell on my 40th birthday. And very nicely, I got a couple of people at the club got a few of the players to sign me a card, and I just tweeted, Danny Ings signs my birthday card. And Twitter went mental. It's like, what are you doing, you bastard? Having a bit of fun.
Well, I'm sure on Monday night, Chris, you'll still be getting people asking you whether you've been told if you can stand down or not yet.
Yeah,
it was always the annual tradition in terms of, we can't go to bed until boards have said he can stand down and there's going to be no more business. So, but yeah, maybe on kind of Sunday's podcast we can touch upon the kind of inner workings of a journalist on transfer deadline day. But Woody, kind of final word on signings or lack of signings. Chris made a real good point that, players who came in January 2 years ago were a part of that promotion side, but then got cast aside because Vincent got some shiny new toys in the summer, all of which have since, by and large, been cast aside again. It does feel a bit of a fool's errand, doesn't it, sometimes, the January transfer window, because they've not got long to make an impact. You're never going to really bring a player in who's going to get you 10 to 15 goals in a second half of the season. If you can find that player, the chances are they're not, dropping down into the Championship. Are you quite relaxed if we're sat here at 11 o'clock UK time on Monday without any meaningful reinforcements? I think there's a few kind of younger players linked who we'll probably send to Dundee. Or are you kind of chomping at the bit to get some signings in to help us with that push?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there by saying meaningful signings. They have to be better than what we've got. Simon hit upon the point that our wage bill is quite astronomical and we can't really move it along because half of that astronomical wage bill is injured. I think little Al might have been stung a little bit from all that ridiculous purchasing from VK, and that may have been a reflection of some of the panic selling over the summer. And it's probably a case of, well, we're not just going to buy for the sake of buying because our manager told us to, just in case he buggers off within the next 6 months, and half of them wind up injured, and the other ones wind up a little bit of a bunch of dead ducks. So I can see there being a reluctance there. If I'd like to sign somebody who is quality, they've got to kind of be Premier League quality, haven't they? I get the likes of the Shelby's and whatnot, this little 6-month end of season period, but it makes sense if they're going to transition in. And we've said it before, however and whenever anybody comes back, on the grass, whatever, then they're a boon. But I'm not chomping at the bit to get somebody in just for the sake of it. I can't see the point.
Yeah, I think as well that the chairman of our club who has to authorise these deals, he must be looking forward to a quiet transfer window because it's just been insane since he's been owner of the club. I mean, the last quiet window would have been selling Chris Wood for stupid money to Newcastle and signing Wout Weghorst that January. Since then, every window has been absolutely insane. And it's money flying in and out. It'll be his finance people going, having kittens every time they see a new signing, going in there with Matt Williams and sitting behind the table and smiling for the cameras. And they're thinking, yep, there goes another 1.5 million a year on another player we've never heard of. So I have a feeling that Mr. Pace is quite looking forward to a January where he can watch other clubs spend a fortune and just put his faith in the squad that we have. And I suspect he's quite enjoying a little bit of calm in general around the club. He's got a manager who's settled, and who's building a quiet team. The team's doing all right. The fans aren't up in arms about anything. It just feels like a bit of stability at the moment. And obviously we know the next window probably is going to be a busy one again, because if we go up, we've got to rebuild for the Premier League. If we don't go up, we've probably got to really start looking at the wage bill and clearing people out and bringing in people on different deals and so on. So I suspect there's a lot of incentives there. I mean, Pace must feel like he's moved house 5 times in the last 2 years, you know, and I think, you know, this is, if Scott Parker comes to him and says, I want a winger, a central midfielder and a centre forward, it'll feel like Mrs. Pace coming in and going, oh, I fancy that semi in Wally, shall we move again? You know, he's
not living in a semi, is he? Let's be honest.
Well, yeah.
He's not living in. In fact, I know he doesn't live in a semi because I know exactly where he lives. So, no, I've not been looking through his windows, I should say, but the estate on which he lives, and there's no small semi-detached, in that part of the world. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Simon. I think, we've said a few times, it feels like a bit more of a mature leadership. Like almost as though he's settled into the fact that he owns a football club now, which we've been very critical, and we're still critical of certain aspects of it. But I think we have to give him some credit in terms of he's probably listening to people who know how to run a football club a bit more than he perhaps did when he came in. And that is, paying dividends, I think, with this stability that we're seeing. So, obviously, if there is anything major, we will pick that up between now and kind of Monday morning for the Monday podcast. And
I really hope we're looking around for Fruitella gifts, though. I mean, having said all that, it would be fantastic to, Chris Bowden's head on top of a Fruitella becoming a meme.
And of course, if anything happens on Monday late on, like Robinho to City did a good few years ago, and we suddenly sign a big marquee signing, and he comes in on the helicopter like Zian Fleming did on transfer deadline day in the summer, then we'll probably reconvene Monday night and do a quick reaction podcast. But until then, it's a big trip to Portsmouth that we've all got to look forward to, and a Saturday 3:00 game, which again is a bit of a rarity in the Championship at the minute for Burnley. So do enjoy your trip if you are going down to Fratton Park. If not, wherever you're watching in the world, enjoy as well. We'll be back with the usual debrief on Monday. And until then, don't forget to sign up to the Substack from theboln.substack.com. Follow us on social media at BOL Podcast. Enjoy the rest of the week and the weekend, and up the Clarets.
How many times do I have to tell you? Stop
Not going anywhere. I've never been happier, only to wake up in a whole different world.
Good pass forward from Brownhill, who's got him behind. And makes no mistake. Defensive frailties from Luton Town. But Scott Parker's Burnley out of the blocks.